Hey Bioteam. There are two general types of reception that can occur. There is extracellular reception and intracellular reception. As the name implies, extracellular reception is when a ligand binds to a receptor outside of the cell membrane, on the exterior of the cell membrane. This generally occurs when the signal molecule is too large or too charged, too polar, to cross through the lipid bilayer on its own. Whereas intracellular reception occurs when a ligand is able to bind to a receptor inside of the cell membrane. And this is possible because the signal molecule is something that is small or nonpolar, maybe like a lipid steroid, that is able to cross through the cell membrane. It's able to cross through the lipid bilayer. So there's three types of extracellular receptors that we'll focus on in this class. The first type of receptor is called a G protein coupled receptor, which, as the name suggests, is a receptor that's coupled to a type of protein called a G protein, named after GTP, one of the molecules it interacts with. And the way a G protein coupled receptor works is that the signaling molecule ligates to the receptor, and that causes the G protein to disengage from the receptor. The G protein that was coupled to the receptor disengages, and it begins the process of transduction. And so you can see this G protein here is activating an enzyme which is provoking a cellular response. The next type of extracellular receptor is something called a receptor tyrosine kinase, or an RTK for short, which generally operates in groups of two. So two ligands bind to two separate receptors, which causes the receptors to bind together. And once these two receptors bind together, they can start a transduction pathway. Specifically, they attract phosphate groups, and they can start a phosphorylation cascade. They can start phosphorylating and activating various kinase enzymes. And then the last type of extracellular receptor is probably the simplest. This is called ligand-gated ion channel. It's a little gate, or a little channel in the cell membrane that, when it binds with a ligand, opens up and allows ions to diffuse through in or out of the cell, causing a response within the cell. For a deep dive on transduction, there are several types of transduction molecules that are pretty commonly associated with relaying of signals. The first type is cyclic AMP, or CAMP for short, which is a second messenger used to relay signals that's often associated with G proteins. Kinases are another type of secondary messenger. And kinases are enzyme proteins that are activated by being phosphorylated. And you can see an image of that here. In order to be activated, a kinase needs to have a phosphate group added onto it. And the last type of transduction molecule we'll cover here are the ions that can get diffused into the cell through ligand-gated channels. They're able to serve as second messengers carrying the signal to target molecules in the cell. And last, to do a deep dive on type of responses, when the second messengers reach their targets in the cell, they can provoke a series of responses. So some common responses that you'll see are either cell growth or cell division. You can see examples of that here. They can actually provoke cell death if there's something wrong with the cell, also known as apoptosis. Or they can provoke the expression of a certain gene and the production of a certain protein. Or last, the second messengers can actually bind to certain enzymes and cause them to activate or inactivate. But that's it. At this point, you guys have some practice problems. We'll see you next class.